here. Uh, I'm hoping for someone to show up so you can tell me if the audio is okay. Last time I tried to stream directly through YouTube app, it was I was getting this sort of intermittent audio where it was cutting out here and there, and because typically I stream through an app called Prism that lets you stream on YouTube, and the reason I use Prism is because it also records onto my phone, a separate recording, so I can easily cut out parts of my show and make separate videos out of them. YouTube lets you do that, but you only can do it cut out 1 minute length videos, and sometimes the stuff I want to cut out is longer. So that's why I usually would use that app. But I just want to know if this sound is okay, because I'll go back to that app if it's choppy like it was last time. But so far, no one's here. I could just start ranting, and hopefully it comes through clear. Maybe I'll set the phone up somewhere so it's not wobbling around the whole time. Yes, I do a lo-fi live stream. No, I'm not all like techie savvy. I'm not savvy with my techie. Not tech savvy. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, there we go. That's about as savvy as I'm gonna be right there. So, I find the flat Earth discussion to be of great interest, and I think everybody should embrace this conversation and jump into it for whatever side of the conversation you're on, whether you're firmly believing you live on a spinning globe or you reject all of that, and you just don't know, you're shape agnostic. Maybe you don't think that the realm we live in really forms a shape necessarily, or perhaps you think the Earth could be a globe, although it's not spinning, or you could maybe think the Earth is a globe, how they describe it and everything, but there's other things about it that they that they claim to know but don't know, and which is because I think even if everything were as described, you're still left with having to explain why they're faking space. And I don't think they would just fake space for money. I don't think it's about like a money, like a financial grift of sorts. I think the space fakery that we see that's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people are concerned. Um, I think that's taking place because it's propaganda. It's an effort to condition you into thinking that all the science about our place in the cosmos has all been it's all settled science. It's not when in reality it's in my opinion it's no such thing. It's there's You wouldn't need to fake space. There wouldn't be a, a need for that. You would just I don't know why you could just say hey everything is how we explain it, but we can't get out of our atmosphere. It's too tricky, too dangerous. They could have just left it at that. Although there'd probably be a lot more people wondering now, but because I think the space programs of the world have gone so far as to convince most people that what they see is real, like the photos of Earth from space and all that. But there's too many problems with it. I just don't even want to go into trying to break it down. If you still want to defend the space presentation as is, um, well then this conversation might not be for you, or maybe it is. I don't know, but I tend to want to leave all the stuff out of the sky, all the stuff that's happening in the sky, out of the discussion of what's taking place on the ground. Although it is closely related and all that, but like if we're talking about the Earth, the surface of the Earth, and the nature of it, whether or not it forms into a spherical shape. Every time I start to go live, someone fires up a chainsaw or something out. If that's going to be too annoying, nobody's even here listening to me. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I'm going to continue with my rant here. Hopefully, this guy turns off his saw. Um, to think that the entire Earth forms into a spherical shape, it would have to be a pretty perfect spherical shape for this all to work, in my opinion. Because if it's lopsided at all, like they say, it's a pear-shaped oblate spheroid, which that just fucks everything up. I would think. How do you have like an even spin, and how is everything functioning so perfectly if it's a lopsided ball? Neil deGrasse Tyson has gone so far as to explain that it's wider past the equator, like a pear. As he said, it was pear shaped, and it's interesting because for it to be wider past the equator, that's not what the latitude longitude lines are indicating. The coordinates don't show that at all. So that's conflicting with their model big time. And it's just funny because like for it to be wider past the equator, eventually it's going to have to start coming back in, to form the bottom of the pear. But like wherever that might be is probably where they cut you off from being able to travel freely. It's like just convenient. But in my opinion, it is wider past the equator, and it just keeps widening. Here's the thing: if we lived on a globe, the way they say the measurements of the globe Earth are 24,000, 25,000 miles in circumference. Um, that's the measurement of the perimeter. The median of the globe Earth is 25,000 roughly miles in circumference. Um, so to think that the biggest perimeter you could draw on the surface of the Earth, the biggest circle that you could draw on the surface of the Earth would be at the median, the halfway point. Now just imagine this, if you will. To draw a circle on the surface of the Earth, let's just say, like, if I were to just go draw a circle in the parking lot somewhere, with a piece of chalk, here's a circle. Can you draw a smaller circle around the outside of it? No. So then the circle would be bigger. Then, yeah, you can't draw a smaller one around the outside of a circle. No, 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 you can't. You can't draw a smaller perimeter around the outside of another perimeter. It's like, that's silly. Okay. So the perimeter, the circle, whatever, would just keep getting bigger. It doesn't matter how big of a circle I draw on the ground. Will I ever be able to draw a smaller circle around the outside of it? Like if it's a fucking massive circle, then can you draw a smaller circle around the outside of it? No, you're still in the same situation. It's always going to be a longer journey. If you're traveling around the outside of a perimeter and you're coming all the way back to where you started, it's always going to be a longer journey because you're moving around the outside of the first perimeter. It's basic stuff. I shouldn't have to explain this, but saw is going to bug the shit out of me. I might have to end this show here. Not that anybody wants to watch it in the first place, but I want to keep hammering away on this point because I think to me it's just laughable, and it's a source of never-ending comedic value for me. Like I don't understand how we came this far with the globe model without somebody addressing this point that I'm making here, which is like the fact that the vast expanse of Earth moving out in every direction from wherever you are right now, it can only widen. It just widens more and more wide. And and for you to think that perhaps that vast expanse that's widening can only reach a certain width before it starts to close back in around a different center location somewhere else. Now that's a stretch. Like if you were to widen if you were to get a perimeter that was widening across the surface of the earth, moving in every direction as it widens, do you think what do you think it would look like when you finally ran out of room to spread out into? Like what would it look like? When you finally run out of room to expand into on Earth. God, this is gonna bug the shit out of me. It was totally quiet before I started streaming. This happens every fucking time. Anyways, what do you think it would look like when you run out of space? The widening perimeter and moving out in every direction. For me, I think it would just be such a massively wide circle or perimeter or whatever. It would be so big at that point. And I would believe that you would have probably most of the known world within that perimeter. I think most people would agree that you should be able to draw a perimeter around the entire known world. people weren't thinking about it in the reference of a globe Earth, because for the biggest circumference to be at the halfway point, the biggest circumference you can draw on the face of the Earth is only circling half the Earth. I don't think that checks out. I mean, obviously, it doesn't make sense. Like you have to depart from reality in order to believe in the globe Earth. That's what I want to emphasize, because we've never seen or experienced or witnessed anything like that, where there's creatures that can live on the outside of a ball while none of them feel like they're on a ball. None of them feel upside down or sideways. Everything's all corrected for. We don't see that in nature. We don't. I mean, if that's what the big picture is, well then, whatever. But like nobody sees that big picture. There's no reason to believe that big picture. They got people believing that because of what they're seeing in the sky, the only explanation for what they're seeing could be that Earth is a globe spinning through a vacuum. And I suppose that's one explanation that you could settle on, but that would be the last thing I would settle on personally. I think I would try to find any other explanation before that, before accepting that, because it's just so extreme and so it's just impossible to really believe that because, well, because of what I'm saying, that the idea that an expanse would widen only so far before it starts to shrink around a different center point somewhere else. Like if you started expanding outward in every direction from where you're standing right now, and you never and you didn't move, you most people would agree with me that you'd be in the center of that widening perimeter as it widens out in every direction. You would remain right in the center as long as you didn't move, and you would just remain in the center of that perimeter that's widening in every direction indefinitely. As long as you didn't move, you should always be remaining right there in the middle. However, that's not what would happen on a globe Earth. Because after that perimeter goes past the median, it has to close back in around a different center location somewhere else that you are no longer sitting in the middle of. It's hard for people to understand, I guess. For me, it was something that clicked in my mind like right away. I was like, oh, that's fucked up. That doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. Um, but I don't know. I'm not getting much love here on YouTube. I'm gonna leave it at that for now. I'll be back later though.